Welcome to the Introduction to Money Quotient and True Wealth Planning. I'm Amy Mullen, president of Money Quotient. We are expecting several more people to join us, but I'm just going to go ahead and jump right in. I also have Jim here from our MQ team. He is going to be moderating the chat window. If you have any questions, feel free to type it into the chat window. He can answer a lot of them as we go through the information, but I'm also happy to answer any remaining questions at the end. And you can certainly unmute at that time and ask your question as well. So I'll stick around as long as anybody needs me to. But we're going to go ahead and jump into this introduction. I'm going to start off by giving you a little bit of history of Money Quotient, so you understand how we got to where we are now and what has gone into our philosophy and the design of our tools, our resources, and our process. And then I'm going to get specific and talk about the true wealth planning model that we have developed. So starting off with a little bit of history. There's a couple pictures on your screen. That little girl sitting on the swing next to her mother, that is me. And Carol Anderson is my mother. She's the founder of Money Quotient. And that's another picture of myself and my brother, Michael. It was really around this time when this whole life's work journey began for Carol. There were three main pivotal points that shot her down this career path. One of them was being introduced, or sorry, that's the wrong word. She was unexpectedly given a divorce, I suppose, from my father. And one of the things she quickly had to figure out was personal finance. She realized that was one big area that she did not have a lot of education around. And as soon as she started looking for financial education, she realized that she was not alone, that there were a lot of people who never got personal finance education throughout their educational career. And it was interesting to her that it was not just preschool teachers like herself who didn't have this education, but others who she thought were very highly educated, like lawyers and doctors, also didn't seem to know what was going on with their personal finances. So she thought that was very interesting. And the third pivotal point was uncovering this research that showed all education, all financial literacy courses had little to no statistical correlation to people actually adopting the financial strategies that they were being taught. So, in other words, financial literacy courses were basically ineffective. So, this made her very curious about what is the missing piece here. Even when people go seek out the education for themselves, they're self-motivated to get that education. They still did not end up implementing or adopting the financial strategies that they learned. So I'm going to be sharing with you today things that she discovered and also, what led to the development of the materials that we have and the process that we train around today. So I thought that I would first share Money Quotient's mission. This I think, does a really good job of trying to share with you where we come from. So the mission of Money Quotient is to facilitate the exploration and implementation of a values-based, life-centered approach to financial planning. We believe this holistic process engages individuals and empowers them to maximize their resources and live meaningful and purposeful lives. To this end, we conduct innovative research, provide the highest quality of tools and training, and nurture a community of like-minded professionals who truly want to affect positive change in the lives of those they serve. So we actually have two sister organizations that work together to accomplish this mission. Money Quotient Inc., that is the logo you see on the left side of the screen. This is where we do our education for financial planners, counselors, professionals. We teach a specific model that we developed, the True Wealth Planning model. We've developed a ton of exercises and tools to use in meetings with clients and have fleshed out a well-organized meeting process. We have a huge library of practice management resources, and we offer a lot of training and consulting through what we call the School of True Wealth. This is where we're teaching all the effective facilitation methods for leading these types of conversations. And then MQ Research and Education is our nonprofit side, 501c3. This is where my mother led a lot of innovative research. She collaborated with various universities across the country. And we even have tools and materials available for students at these universities to run clinics and be able to do testing as well as gaining some experience as well. We do have plans in the future to provide a platform for pro bono activities, some of these financial literacy courses that encompass what Carol had uncovered in her research. And we often provide education from our nonprofit side out of what we call Money Quotient University, MQ University. So Money Quotient, our organizations were founded in 2001. So we've been working with financial professionals, educating them for 24 years now. And everything that we teach has a multidisciplinary approach. This is part of what Carol uncovered. She took a very multidisciplinary perspective in trying to understand what motivates people to follow through and implement financial strategies. So she looked at a lot of these different concepts and theories that you see on the screen: family systems theory, life course theory, adult development theory, self-determination theory. As I mentioned before, that's kind of important to understand when we know that people have to kind of seek out their financial education or working with a financial professional, they have to be self-determined to do that. And empathetic listening skills was a part of what helped advisors or professionals to be effective. Here's another quick list of more. This is just a sampling. There are quite a bit more, but positive psychology is a big umbrella with a lot of concepts and theories underneath, including appreciative inquiry, which we use quite a bit in the development of our tools. Stages of Change by Dr. James Prochowska is a model we talk about quite a bit. Principles of adult learning and personal coaching skills. We also have quite a lot of information from neurology, which I'm going to actually share a little bit of that today with you. Sociology, a lot of the behavioral type sciences. So all of that was used as lenses in the design of all of our educational programs, all of our tools and resources, and our trainings, of course. So we're first and foremost an educational organization. Pretty much everything that we put out there has been accepted for CFP CE credits. It's all, we also have quite a few that have been accepted for AFC from the AFCPE organization. Those are typically financial coaches and counselors. We have a lot of different types of education, lots of virtual things that happen, webinars, workshops, and online courses, self-paced online courses. And we also do several in-person trainings. Sometimes you'll see us at conferences doing pre-conference or post-conference learning opportunities. So lots to take a look at. In fact, the majority of these things are open to anyone who wants to participate. So if you look at our event calendar on our website, in fact, I'll have Jim put the link to our event calendar in the chat window. you'll notice that there is a way to register even if you're not a Money Quotient partner. You can still participate in our education offerings. So, and I'm also going to talk today about how to become a Money Quotient partner if you choose to take that path. So before I jump into that, though, I want to talk a little bit more about the high level philosophy, things that Carol uncovered in her research, that help to make that relationship between a professional and a client more successful, leading to implementation of those strategies, a lot healthier financial lives for these clients. So I like to use Simon Sinek's TED Talk or his book, Start With Why, as a way of kind of helping to explain what that missing piece was that Carol uncovered taking this multidisciplinary perspective. I'm sure everyone has seen this. If you haven't, all you have to do is Google Simon Sinek Start With Why. It'll be the first thing that pops up for sure. But in that TED Talk, he talks about a communication dynamic that he has observed over many years, studying professionals, studying leaders of groups, big like grassroots type movements as well. He's looking at all different types of leadership. And what he discovered was that most people logically follow the communication dynamic kind of from that outside circle in. So what, how, and then why. And an example of that might be if you're in a social situation and somebody asks about what you do for a living, most financial planners would say, I'm a financial planner. And what that means is I provide services like investment management or retirement planning, or I help people with education funding and looking at insurance and looking at taxes. So they start naming off the various services that they provide to their clients, which satisfies that what ring. Rarely would the conversation go much further than that, but if it did, the client might, or the person might ask, how do you do all these things? What does that look like? And the advisor might explain that they use a lot of different technology and analysis software to plug in different assumptions and figure out, how their money can be allocated throughout their life and have a great retirement in the end. But rarely does the conversation go into the why piece. And the why is also a little bit misunderstood. Simon would say this as well in interviews after his TED Talk, is I think a lot of people will just immediately think, why are you doing this? Well, I like to make an impact in people's lives. I like to help. I'm, a helper. I like to make sure that people are living the lives they really want and don't have stress and anxiety. Those are great reasons why you do this, but they are really the outcomes of the work that you do. So when Simon talks about why, it's actually your own story, your own history. How did you get to where you are? And usually people have some story about observing how a family member was cheated or was given misinformation and it took them down a bad path, something like that. But it's your story that made you passionate about this, created that core value that is the why that Simon talks about in this communication dynamic. So the second ring in this picture is supposed to be like a diagram of an individual's brain. If you take a slice this way, Simon talks about how it's kind of lined up with our brain. When a person is explaining what they are doing, our neocortex, our analytical brain, understands facts, it understands data, and understands language and definition of terms. However, this part of our brain is not responsible for building any sort of motivation to take action. It's just understanding information. Of course, you use that information as part of your decision-making framework, but there's no motivation that's built to move forward and take action. It's really our limbic brain, our emotional brain, that creates that sense of urgency to take some sort of action. And it is particularly connected to the how and why of our stories and not really the what of our stories. So one of the things that Carol really uncovered is the fact that our emotional brain has not been tapped into in these financial literacy type courses. And there's a big missing piece there in terms of building motivation to actually take action. I like to think of it this way. Action follows emotion always. And you may have heard some sales tactics of find that pain point, because people know if that anxiety comes up, if those negative feelings come up, there is an urgency to do something so that negative feeling would go away. The same is true on the opposite side of the emotional uh, continuum. If you feel positive emotions, excuse me, like you're excited about something or happy about something, you're pursuing something, that also provides a sense of wanting to move forward and take action. In me, a little tickle in my throat. So by tapping into the emotional brain, we could not only help people become far more kind of committed to the goals and plans that they move forward, but it also is going to raise that motivation to implement financial strategies that otherwise seem boring and uninteresting to them. So this is part of our philosophy. This equation pretty much makes up our philosophy and is embedded in everything that we teach. The MQ in this equation is a measurement of an individual's overall sense of financial well-being. And that is made up of two very important components. The EQ is their measurement. Basically, they're a measurement of their awareness of their emotions and how those emotions are affecting their decisions and affecting their environment, affecting their relationships around you. I can imagine that somebody might pop into your mind if you think of somebody who might have low EQ. They're not quite aware that their emotions and their behaviors are affecting people around them, or their emotions are affecting their decisions in important ways. The IQ in this equation is their level of financial education, essentially, and how confident they feel in making decisions moving forward. So both of these are important for somebody to feel a sense of financial well-being. And I want to pause here just for a second to make an important point. A lot of times in behavioral, like in behavioral finance, some of the research that has been done is for the purpose of helping financial professionals understand how people react to like the changes in the market, to try and predict what their behaviors might be, and then modify the environment or modify how we're communicating with them in order to make them go in the direction that we think is best. But this is not really what we're talking about at Money Quotient. Rather, what we wanted to know is understand the emotions so that we can actually take them into consideration when making financial decisions. So an example would be if an individual had a mortgage and felt really anxious and stressed out with that level of debt, they're just not comfortable. The best financial recommendation for that person might be to hold on to that mortgage and pay it off at a particular rate in order to take advantage of this tax planning strategy. But knowing that this is causing that individual a lot of stress and anxiety, maybe the best decision for them is actually to pay it off, because long-term stress and anxiety can cause additional health problems in the future. So we really want to take in the whole person's emotions and life when crafting the right financial decisions for them. So, throughout the work that financial professionals do with their clients, it's important to remember that everybody is looking through, including you, two lenses when making decisions about strategies, moving forward, financial decisions. One is an emotional lens, and typically that is a gut feeling because a lot of what's in our emotional brain is actually in our subconscious. So they can feel the emotion, but they may not always be aware of what's causing it. And so you may hear people say, like, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just not going to go that way. It just doesn't feel right to me. We also have a rational lens, which we like to believe is objective, but it's actually quite subjective as well because of what you probably have heard this, confirmation bias. So we tend to, as humans, look at and recognize facts and data, things that align with things that we already believe in. If we have beliefs in our minds, then we're going to focus on the things that align with those beliefs, and we're going to ignore the facts and data that contradict the belief that we have. So even our rational lens is fairly subjective and unique to each individual. So it's where those two overlap that create their frame of reference. It creates their version of reality from which they make decisions. So the Money Quotient tools and process were really designed to help both the client and the financial professional get as familiar as possible. So bringing some of that from the subconscious to the conscious for the client, getting familiar with that frame of reference as quickly and as efficiently as possible, because now when we understand from which frame they are making decisions, it can help us to present our recommendations in certain ways that connect with them well, or modify our communication with them in ways that are going to fit with their lifestyle. So when we bring in more life conversations, things that they are personally relating to or emotionally relating to, suddenly the financial conversations become a lot more relevant and meaningful for them. So when financial decisions are relevant and meaningful, they are far more likely to follow through on those recommendations. Okay, so a financial life planning approach to financial planning would always start with exploring an individual's core values. And a lot of these core values are in their subconscious brain. It's been shaped by their experiences throughout their lifetime, things that motivate them to take action. We really want to learn about those things, and we want the client to become more aware of it as well. So that they can make mindful decisions. Once we have clarity around that, we use those core values and motivations as a foundation for creating a vision of an ideal life. If all these things are really important to you and they bring you joy and intrinsic reward, then we want them at the core of your vision for your future. And once they get a clear picture of that vision, then very specific goals that are meaningful to them come out of that process. With their values, their motivations, their vision, and their goals, you add the financial strategies. They have everything they need for a confident decision-making framework. They can go into their lives, feel good about, if I make this decision, it's going to bring me closer to my vision. If I make this decision, it will take me further away. So that level of clarity is really a gift that you can provide to your clients. So not only does it sound really logical and it makes a lot of sense, but we actually also have scientific proof of its effectiveness. So Carol, one of the research projects that she was involved in with a couple of different universities, there were five researchers. This was sponsored by FPA as well as the CFP board. They wanted to understand how these different elements of a financial life planning process, how did it affect trust and commitment, client retention, client satisfaction, their cooperation? Did they follow through? Did they implement all the strategies? Their willingness to share additional financial information as well as personal information? And then how did it affect their referrals to friends and family? So the results, as you can probably imagine, they were extremely strong statistical correlation to all of these variables if those life planning elements, as in values clarification, visioning exercises, as a part of the goal setting process, and the collection of that qualitative information. If those were a part, then there was strong statistical correlation to all of these variables. Okay, so now I'm going to get into our specific model based on the research that Carol had done over the last 30 years. And we've done a lot of testing of the tools and materials, so it's evidence-based as well. But there are four inquiry categories that, or another term might be like conversation topics that are important to have with your clients to raise their self-awareness and build that motivation to take action in their own financial lives. One of those categories is satisfaction and values. So I'll share a little bit about this with you, why the reasons are. First of all, satisfaction is a very subjective emotional concept, and it's defined by each individual's definition of success. So if you can imagine, I define success in this way. If I don't feel like I'm close to it, then I'm dissatisfied. You can have, in fact, you can have two people who have the very same income levels. Like, let's say they get $200,000 a year. One can feel as though they're living a really abundant life and they feel very happy. The other person can be scared and nervous and anxious and feel like they're very much behind. So satisfaction clearly is far more of an emotional issue than it is a practical one. In addition, values are what fuel our sense of life satisfaction. So if we're involved in activities that are aligned with our core values, it makes us feel happy. It makes us feel as though we're being fulfilled in our lives. And and the opposite is true as well. So if you end up spending or saving in ways that are not aligned with your values, that's where you feel dissatisfied. We all know stories about incredibly wealthy people who are unhappy. And remember when I talked about these emotional things being mainly in the core values, mainly in the subconscious brain, there's a lot of you can understand why some people are unhappy and dissatisfied, but they don't know why. They don't have clarity around their core values. If they gain clarity around their core values and they modify the way they're spending or saving to align with it, they will then begin to feel life satisfaction. So one of the tools that we have in our library for MQ partners is personal insights about life balance. This is ways, questions that clients can answer that begin to bring about those core values. They begin to get clarity around that. Another inquiry category is biography. Why is it important to explore biography? Because everything that we see within our frame of reference was created by all of our our past experiences, and the majority of which from our childhood specifically. So we have conscious and unconscious beliefs. So those beliefs affect our behaviors. We also have fears and things that we're worried about. Those are shaped by our past experiences as well as our values and what we feel is important. And anything that we are passionate about and our dreams, our aspirations for the future, it all has been built over time through our experiences. So by exploring biography a little bit and some of those stories, they begin to uncover, oh yes, this is what is causing some of these fears or concerns, or this is, truly my values and priorities, and this is what I feel passionate about. One of the tools we have in our library is called Money Memories. And this is really fun for couples to go through because they start talking about, what was their first job and how did they earn their first money? What did they spend their money on to begin with? And oftentimes in these fun conversations about these things, um, it some aha moments occur, like, oh, no wonder this is how I have decided to manage my money today. I picked that up from my grandparents, or this is how it worked with my first paycheck, what I did with my first paycheck. So they begin to bring some of those subconscious beliefs and behaviors to their conscious mind, which is great because then they get to decide, is this serving me well? Or do I want to modify my beliefs and behaviors so that I can be more successful with my financial plan? It can't really be done unless they recognize the origin of some of those beliefs and behaviors that they have. Transitions is another topic area. As you can imagine, and we've all been feeling, change is really the only constant in our lives. We can't stop it from happening, but we can certainly do a better job of preparing for it. Interestingly, research shows that transitions or changes in our lives are far more a psychological process. There's a lot more that happens in our brain than it is a physical or tangible process. And that's where we get into the stages of change theory in our training. It's very interesting. But nearly all transitions in our life, it's hard to think of one that doesn't have some sort of financial tether, even if it boils down to a cash flow line item. Usually, any sort of change that we desire to make in our lives or that happens to us in our lives have some sort of financial tether. And all of them require practical strategies, but they also require that person to have emotional fortitude to take control of that change moving forward. So personal insights about change is another example of a tool we have in our library that helps people think about the changes that they've made through their lifetime. What helped them to be successful? How can we take what we've learned from our past experience and apply it to what we have coming up in our future so that we can make very successful transitions? And the fourth area we talk about is goals. And of course, without goals, what would we do in financial planning? But one thing that we haven't taken a step back and realized is actually people have a lot of negative feelings around goal setting. It could be because they've attempted goals in the past and failed to do so. They have goals pressed upon them in their work environments. Those are not personal goals that are important to them, but being pressed on them. Or maybe they have low self-efficacy. They don't believe they have the capability of being able to move through those changes or transitions on their own. So there's a lot of reasons people might not be eager to jump into a goal setting process. So as a partner, a guide, an educator in your client experience, it can make things a whole lot easier if you take some time to help them adopt a fresh perspective of goal setting. Something, maybe use different terminology, make it a much more personal experience for them. One of the things that we teach is a really fun and simple shift from the SMART acronym that everyone knows. Everyone's been taught this. When you bring this up, even in different countries, it's crazy. I've done trainings in different countries that don't even speak English, and they know the SMART acronym. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, tangible. How much more neocortex boring can you be? So this takes something that might be exciting and fun, and it makes it a chore, makes it not fun anymore. So if we talk about SMART goals in a way where we want these goals to be significant to you, we want them to be meaningful, in other words, aligned with your core values. We want you to feel attracted to finishing that goal or going down that journey. We want it also to be rewarding, not just at the end, but as a financial planner, you can talk to them about how can we set up these benchmarks where we can celebrate our progress and we can reward ourselves. That keeps people on the path. And we also want to talk about if these goals are timely. If they are something that is conflicting with other things going on in our lives. So being able to prioritize is also an important conversation so that they don't feel overwhelmed. So the Wheel of Life is the first tool in a sequence of tools that advisors can guide their clients through to eventually pull out those core values and move into envisioning what an ideal life would look like. So those are the 4 inquiry categories that are a part of the process that we teach. This is the true wealth planning process. It has 5 stages to it. I will give a brief explanation of each of these stages, but really to remember that all of the psychological aspects at play in a planner-client relationship are built into what we designed here. So it's all built to actually help you do this CFP 7-step process in a very effective and efficient way. So explore stage is when you are meeting with a prospect for the first time, that getting acquainted meeting. The data gathering that we teach is very broad. We want to understand the scope of engagement with these people, but we don't need to go deep in our understanding. We just need to understand the scope of engagement, and we can explain how our discovery process is going to bring out more and how we will do very customized plans for them. So our engage and envision stages, these are 2 stages of discovery. The engage stage is about understanding who this person is today. So that frame of reference, you're going to do a little bit of exploration of their biography to understand how core values were developed, how concerns and perspective was developed. And then once the client has a better understanding of their core values, we guide them into envisioning what they want the future to look like. What would an ideal future look like? And that boils down to specific goals. Our Enlighten stage, where we're delivering a draft of the financial recommendations, is aligned with analyzing, developing, and presenting the financial plan. We have deliverables that help connect the personal life goals, values, decisions with the specific financial strategies. When they see that connection, they're much more motivated to follow through. And are much more committed to the plan moving forward. Our empower stage is when you're supporting that client in implementation and you're continuing to monitor any changes that might occur in their financial life, but also in their personal life that might affect or require some modifications of their financial plan. So one of the things we provide are client meeting templates. These are basically like our recipes for how to conduct an onboarding process with a new client. Here's what a getting acquainted meeting looks like. Here's what the first discovery meeting looks like. Here are the client tools to use. Here are the practice management resources you can use. This is what the agenda would look like. If you follow this recipe, you can be assured to get to specific outcomes. Like any recipe, once you have experience with it, then and you have a deep knowledge of the tools and resources, then people begin to throw a new spice in or modify things a little bit. So this is our templates are a great way to start to make sure that you reach these particular outcomes. We want to help raise our clients' awareness of their own beliefs and attitudes around money that affect their decisions so they can make more mindful decisions. We are also assisting them in raising their own awareness and understanding around their own core values and what motivates them. We help them to create a vision of what their ideal future is and help them to identify where the goals are within that vision. And then we provide our financial strategies, which completes the whole decision-making framework. So you can see the process is really, the number one purpose is raising their own awareness and confidence level in making decisions, raising their motivation and excitement for their future as well. Okay. So the main things that I think differentiate Money Quotient in terms of our training, our life planning training and such, is that we are a research and evidence-based education. Everything that we have is research and evidence-based. We take a multidisciplinary approach to everything. So it's going to include the practical and emotional aspects. The structured practical process, I think, is our biggest differentiator. We actually have things in a turnkey system for you. So you have email templates, you have meeting agendas, you have specific client-facing materials and tools, and you have back office things too for collecting that information and understanding how you can fit this into your workflows with other team members even. This process is going to come up with unique results for each individual. It's going to be based on their own personal goals and priorities. So there's no pre-selected diagnosis. If you score like this, then you're this type of person. So it should feel really customized and personalized to the clients. We also have ongoing support. The whole first year of your MQ partnership is really focused on making sure that you've got everything dialed in, implemented the way that you want, answering your questions about that. But then we have ongoing webinars and education that you can participate in at any time. And we also nurture our community of like-minded professionals. They are very generous people. Our new planners coming on often will ask our veteran MQ partners a lot of questions, and they are very generous with their experience of being a practitioner with this. So I'm going to now close down my slides. And I'm going to give you a quick tour. Let me just check the time. Okay, a quick tour of the materials directory in a client account so you get an idea of the breadth of materials that you have available if you decide to become an MQ partner. And then I'm going to walk through the steps to becoming an MQ partner if that is something you're interested in doing. So all MQ partners have their own account. This is what it looks like when they log in. Material or client-facing tools are all available in both PDF form. If you want to print it, it looks nice in that PDF form. But they're also available in online submittable forms. So when clients complete them, they will show up in this dashboard, client submissions. You can organize them. You can export them if you want to into your own CRM system. We have an education archive. This is filled with a ton of on-demand education, and it's in all kinds of topics from prospect communication and marketing to fine-tuning your first year, your discovery process in your first year with your clients, to how to add value to your annual meetings and add value to long-term existing clients. We also take deep dives into specific topics like teaching kids certain lessons, or if you're interested in developing investment policy statements with your clients. We have a lot of guest speakers, but there's a ton of materials, and we are in the process of making on-demand CE library as well. That would just be a part of your partnership. Our live webinars that we do every month are typically CE available as well, so you can participate live and get that CE for CFP. So the materials directory is divided into lots of sections. The first section follows our true wealth planning model. So explore stage would be when you're with a prospect client, getting acquainted meeting. So once you click on the stage, then all the materials that are available for that particular stage of the process show up in the second column. And then you can click on any of the materials and it will show up in the third column. So you see a little bit, you can get a preview here of the tool, what the PDF would look like. But you can also grab a link for that specific tool to send in an email. The clients receive it. When they click on it, it would appear like this, the financial satisfaction survey. All of these are brandable. So you simply upload your own logo and they would all show up here. The client would put in their name and email and they would complete this exercise. This is asking about their level of satisfaction with various aspects of their financial life, really broadening their understanding of what you can help them with. So this is definitely an awareness tool, but it also creates a framework for your conversation with that prospect to understand their situation. What are they feeling concerned about? And so therefore you can share, if you decide to become a client, this is how we would help you in this area. So they submit the form down here. There's also a way that you can add a footer. If you have a security statement that you would need to add to these, you can do so automatically and very easily through our account. So back to the materials directory. Anything that you see in this third column is going to have a bunch of support materials. So this is a 90-second video that reminds you of the purpose of that tool and gives you some tips on how to facilitate the conversation. But there's a full-fledged tool guide here that you can download, and that actually can give you some scripts. How do you introduce this tool in a very practical way? What is the purpose of this, and how is it going to help in the financial planning process? Remember, well, not remember, I'm saying this for the first time. This process was really designed for the practical process of raising, or practical purpose of raising their awareness of their own priorities and goals. It has a practical purpose, but oftentimes people have real aha moments, real transformative experiences. But you can always explain the tool in a simple, practical way so they understand the purpose. There's no pushback. And there's a bunch of related resources underneath too. So you can see meeting agendas, templates, even videos that discuss that tool as well. So lots of things here to take a look at. So as you move through the 5 stages of the process, It all will give you a bunch of materials to look at. We also have for existing clients common situations that might pop up. We have our recommendations for annual meetings. We have a series that are specific to retirement planning. This is great series of tools to bring in maybe in year 3 or 5, whenever it might be appropriate. You can take a deep dive in that retirement planning and make something, make a vision that's really exciting for them. We have some behavioral type things like conflict between spouses, overspending, hoarding, some fun exercises that we recommend for those behavioral type things. But then legacy, if you have business owners, there's a whole suite of materials for business owners as well. There's a big library of practice management resources, and these additional modules I'll bring your attention to. One of the surveys, well, first of all, there's an article library. These are client-facing articles you can use as blog articles or in a newsletter. There are also tons of individual life transition worksheets. So if a person is experiencing or about to experience any of these work transitions, then you have a place you can immediately go to. Let's look at change in career path. So this worksheet has the first page will have a list of questions that you can immediately sit down and have that worksheet with you and go through the questions with them. What are your answers to these questions? It helps you understand the situation, their perspective, what they hope the outcome will be. On page 2 of all of the worksheets, there's a bulleted list of potential financial implications that go along. So you can say, as your advisor, these are the things that I would want to make sure are all lined up for you so you can make this smooth transition. And then underneath that are a list of resources that all have to do with that transition. So if they're looking for a book to read that has something to do with it, or if they're looking for a website or organization that offers support, these are all Money Quotient vetted resources, which means they're research-based and they offer a good, solid education without focusing on any specific trends that are happening just in the moment. So we update these resources every couple of years as well. So you can see work transitions, financial transitions, there's a ton of family transitions and several legacy transitions as well. These are all things that have financial implications. And then lastly, in the additional modules area, there are 4 workbooks. Measuring and raising your MQ. This brings in that concept of there's both the EQ and IQ that contribute to your overall sense of financial well-being. So this is a little workbook that they can go through that helps them think about that and learn some things. We have 2 different workbooks around retirement planning, and we have one workbook called Journey into Elderhood. This is meant to be used with aging parents and helping to communicate to their adult children what their wishes are. These can be made into workshops or client appreciation events, lots of different things you can do with those resources. So that's just a very quick tour of kind of the breadth of the materials directory. And I just want to break down the steps to becoming an MQ partner. So right now you are in this section where you're learning about MQ partnership, and you can also sign up for a Getting Acquainted meeting with me. We'll talk about your firm in particular and the areas that you're hoping to improve upon, enhance in terms of your client experience. And I can share some very specific resources that I think will help to fit what you're looking for. We do have a sampler package available. It's a small package of tools that you can experience just for a short period of time for a 3-month maximum amount of time, but it would give you access to a few tools. and resources, and you would also be able to participate in our live webinars. That's $150 to set that up and $50 a month if you're doing the full 3 months. And then, of course, you can always participate in any of our educational offerings without being an MQ partner. So, our fundamentals of true wealth planning is our first step to becoming an MQ partner. Once you've completed this training, you are now eligible to be an MQ partner. This is what we do in this training is we have you go through the materials as if you're a client. So you understand from a client's perspective, oh, this is how I gain clarity around my values. This is how I use it in developing the vision. Here's how it turns into goals. And we also have you facilitate the process for another person who is in the training as well. So you begin to understand just how much information you learn about somebody that you've never met before. And we also have you create a deliverable for your partner that you guided through the process. So you can see how the financial strategies are tied to the personal values or goals that they've shared with you. So the options for this training are either a 3-day in-person training. I highly recommend that you come to our August training, August 13th through the 15th in Minneapolis. I'm very excited. It's going to be hosted by one of our veteran partners. So there's an added bonus that you'll get to hear how these practitioners have used the materials. They've been partners for 7 years, and they're going to share with everybody exactly how they laid out their process. So that's kind of an added bonus in Minneapolis, August 13th through the 15th. We do 2 virtual trainings a year, one in the spring and one in the fall. These are 5 half-day. So they're 4.5 hours a day. If you're on the East Coast, Pacific Coast, it goes from 9 a.m. to 1:30. If you're on the East Coast, that's 12 o'clock to 4:30. Yes. And we start on a Wednesday. It goes Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We take a break over the weekend and complete the training on Monday and Tuesday. We also do hosted trainings. If you have advisors in your area that are all interested, we could come together and host a training in your area. We also do private firm trainings. And I don't think I added this here yet. This is accepted for 24 CE credits from the CFP program, 18 CE from for the AFC credential, and we just got this training approved for IAR credits as well. I'm thrilled about that. All 12 IAR credits that are required by advisors in like half the states in the United States are requiring those. So every year. So this can take care of all 12 that you would need in 1 year. So once you complete that, then you can sign up as an MQ partner. There's a ton of benefits that you receive. This is a subscription model, so it's $145 per advisor who's using it. You can have support staff and stuff that don't need to be an advisor using an account, but they can certainly help you with things. We do have a 1-year commitment, and then after that, it can be a month to month. If you choose to cancel in the future, you can give us a 30-day notice. But there's both live and on-demand education that's a part of your membership. That full materials directory that I shared with you, we do have discussion forums with our MQ community. You can get in there and ask people questions as well. So that is all the features of the partnership. In your first year, you will also choose an implementation experience. This is also required because it helps you to deepen your knowledge of your library of resources. The purpose of any of the implementation experiences is to deepen your knowledge and help you build confidence with facilitation skills. So we teach facilitation skills as well. There's a self-study option, a community experience, and then community plus personal coaching experience. So I'm going to run over to these slides really quick. This does have a fee, but we stretch the fee over your first year. So in other words, if you choose the self-study, it'll be an additional $100 a month for that first year. That means a total of $245 a month for 12 months. After 12 months, it's just $145 from that time forward. So this is self-paced. You see a lot of demonstrations and videos. You practice your active listening by taking notes and then comparing it to what we share. We learned from those discussions, so it can help you to see how you're comparing in terms of your listening skills. There are no individual consultations with this option, and there's no additional CE credits with this option. The community experience is we guide a cohort of students through. I am one of the leaders, as well as Derek Hagan. He's a financial behavior specialist. And it's a 3-month course with a commitment of about 2 to 2.5 hours a week. We try to make it easy to fit into a busy schedule, but by the end of that 3 months, you'll be up and running with your process. You'll learn the facilitation skills. So it's great in terms of accountability. And you also learn from all the other people who are building out their processes as well. So there's study team meetings, there's group communication workshops. That's worth an additional 15.5 CE. And everybody in this program gets an individual consulting call with either myself or Derek as well. And then the community experience and personal coaching, this is a very customized process. So not only do you get the community experience, but we also customize personal coaching calls with you and your team for the whole first year. We can do an on-site 2-day visit as well. That would be customized for the needs that you have, training staff or helping you to get things in order, doing an advanced training possibly with the advisors. So that is that third option. I know I just fire hosed you with information and we are 1 minute over, but I am here to answer any questions that you might have. You can feel free to unmute yourself if you have questions. It looks like we lost Jim, but it doesn't also look like anybody typed any questions in. So anything I can help you with?
Hi, Amy. It's Eric Nero. Great
Hi.
presentation. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, I took the motivational interviewing course, which I think is fantastic. So I'd recommend that to anybody. I guess my thing here is there's
I
here,
know.
a lot here. And I know
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of time. So a part of my hesitation is just there's a lot of change that needs to happen with respect to implementing all of this and being able to really do it well. I mean, that library of materials is fantastic, but just it's a little intimidating, I think,
Overwhelming.
to look at that and then say, how do I digest all of this in a period of time, and how is it that I can come across ultimately to clients and other people that are going to benefit from this new way of doing things? Is that, I'm sure you've addressed that. I'm sure that's part of how everything is done, but maybe just touch on that a little bit.
Yeah, you are definitely not alone. When people see the amount of materials that we have, there are some common concerns. One of which is what you're expressing, how long will this really take to be comfortable with it and, be able to implement the materials. And really, so we've designed our training process in a very similar way that we would recommend doing it with your clients. So where we break things down in manageable steps, and we help you focus on just one stage at a time to really understand what's there, what's available, what does it do, and then you make decisions as to what you want in your foundational process. So usually the foundational process has a handful of tools that you would use with any client that comes on board, every client that would come on board, that's going to give you the information you need to really flesh out your financial plan. So it's approximately 2 client tools per meeting, which is very manageable. It's very easy to do. And it doesn't mean that your meetings are going to be longer. So that's another concern that people bring up. It seems like if I add this to my meetings, it's going to be longer meetings. It's going to be more work for the client. It's going to be more work for me. But the truth of the matter is that typically, firms don't change the number of meetings they have. They don't even change how long the meetings are. They just simply change what they're doing within the meeting to be more efficient and effective. So once an advisor has like a couple of rounds of practice, basically, they become a lot more confident in how easy and manageable it actually is. Now, the Money Quotient tools are all used within the client meeting. They're sent out in advance. The client fills them out, and they're just used as a framework for conversations. The only thing you would do outside of the meeting is take maybe 10 minutes worth of notes on the qualitative information that you learned. And then that all accumulates, all those notes accumulate into the deliverable. So outside of the meeting, I think the total amount of time you would really need to spend is like a half an hour. So it doesn't create a lot of work outside of your client meetings. Uh, did I answer your question?
Yes. Yeah. So that was very helpful. Just that my whole point was, all right, how do I digest all of this
Yeah,
in a way that is usable and not, adding lengths of time, effort, and resources to bolt it on.
right. Derek would say, trust the process. Trust the process. We've broken it down into and made it manageable, easy steps. I think that 3 month, I mean, we always recommend the community experience when you're picking your implementation, because uh, what you learn from other people is hugely valuable. Plus, it breaks it down and keeps you accountable to moving forward. What we find is when you have like big breaks in between your exposure to money quotient education, then it's kind of like you take 2 steps back a little bit and have to refresh your memory of what is going. So our recommendation is, even if you're doing the self-study one, to block, a couple of hours a week just to focus on money quotient, and that will steadily build on you getting there. But that doesn't mean you have to wait until it's all figured out. Our recommendation is to jump right in with like 2 tools. You can throw that into an annual meeting very easily. You can throw it into a getting acquainted meeting very easily. You don't have to have the whole process figured out to start using the tools right away. And I think that's really the best path because you will build confidence as you're using the tools too.
Got it. Well, Amy, thank you. I'm going to have to run, but this has been very, 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 very informative and helpful. I really appreciate it.
Cool. No problem. Glad to have you here. We will include, I don't know if anybody else has questions. You can certainly unmute yourself if you do, but we'll be sending a follow-up email. It will have a recording to this Intro to Money Quotient if you want to share that with anybody else from your firm or outside of your firm that you think could benefit from learning about us. That would be great. I'd appreciate it. Getting acquainted in the follow-up email, there'll also be a link to my calendar if you want to sign up for a getting acquainted meeting. So with that, I will say so long. Thank you for being here.